Imagine this, a 19-year-old scrolling endlessly on TikTok at 3 a.m., desperately searching for meaning in 10-second dopamine hits. A 22-year-old graduate drowning in student debt, wondering if they'll ever afford a home. A 25-year-old battling burnout from a job they secretly hate but are too afraid to leave. This isn't just a phase, it's an epidemic. What is Gen Z really thinking? And more importantly, why should you care? Brace yourself, because we're about to expose the dark truths that no one dares to talk about. The world labels Gen Z as lazy, entitled, and glued to their screens, but the truth is far more complex. This generation is breaking records for anxiety, depression, job dissatisfaction, and loneliness. And yet, they're also the most innovative, socially aware, and digitally powerful generation in history. Why this video will change how you see Gen Z forever. This isn't just another video complaining about kids these days. We're diving deep into the real struggles, hidden motivations, and silent battles Gen Z faces daily. This book reveals what Gen Z won't openly admit and what society refuses to acknowledge. Here's why you must watch until the end. You'll uncover 11 shocking insights that expose the truth about Gen Z's mental state, work ethic, social media addiction, and future ambitions. You'll see real stories that bring these struggles to life, so you can truly understand what's happening beneath the surface. You'll discover hidden forces shaping this generation, from corporate greed to algorithmic brainwashing, and what it means for all of us. By the time we're done, you won't just understand Gen Z. You'll see the world through their eyes. Lesson 1. The hidden epidemic of loneliness. Gen Z is the most digitally connected generation in history, yet they're also the loneliest. Studies show that nearly 80% of young adults feel isolated despite having thousands of online friends. But why? The answer lies in the illusion of connection. Social media creates a false sense of belonging, where curated posts replace genuine relationships. The rise of remote work and online learning has erased organic human interactions that previous generations took for granted. Dating apps have gamified love, turning genuine connections into an endless cycle of swipes and ghosting. Real story. Meet Jake, a 23-year-old who has 50,000 Instagram followers but hasn't had a meaningful conversation in weeks. He spends hours replying to DMs, yet when he turns off his phone, he feels completely alone. The consequences? Higher rates of depression, anxiety, and social anxiety disorders. A generation terrified of phone calls, confrontation, and real-world interactions. A shift towards virtual escapism, where video games and online personas feel safer than reality. But here's the real question. Is this Gen Z's fault? Or was this system designed this way? Lesson 2. The Great Attention Hijack. Imagine waking up, reaching for your phone, and before you know it, an hour has disappeared. Sound familiar? Gen Z isn't just addicted to social media. They are the product. Tech companies profit from their distraction, designing apps that hijack attention and manipulate emotions. The average Gen Z spends 7+ hours a day glued to their screens, unknowingly trapped in a cycle of endless scrolling. Short-form content, TikTok, Reels, Shorts, has rewired attention spans, making it harder to focus, learn, or engage deeply. Real story. Sarah, 21, set a goal to read 20 books this year. But every time she tries, she can't focus beyond a few pages. The urge to check notifications is too strong. The consequences? increased anxiety, brain fog, and an inability to be present. A workforce that struggles with productivity and deep work. A. Mental health crisis fueled by dopamine addiction. And here's the terrifying part. This isn't an accident. It's by design. Lesson 3. The loneliness epidemic. Why Gen Z feels more isolated than ever in a world more connected than ever before. Why does Gen Z feel so alone? Social media was supposed to bring people together, yet studies show that Gen Z is the loneliest generation in history. Despite having thousands of digital friends, real-world connections are crumbling. Let's dive deep into this paradox and uncover what's really happening behind the screens. The illusion of connexio. Picture this. A teenager posts a perfectly edited selfie, racks up hundreds of likes, and gets a flood of heart emojis. On the surface, it seems like they're popular, loved, and socially thriving. But behind the screen, they're sitting alone in their room, feeling more isolated than ever. This is the digital mirage Gen Z faces daily. Social media provides the illusion of connection but lacks the depth of real human interaction. Messages and likes don't replace eye contact, deep conversations, or shared experiences. It's like eating junk food, quickly satisfying but ultimately empty. The decline of real friendshipsa. Shocking study from Cigna found that 79% of Gen Z report feeling lonely, compared to 50% of older generations. This isn't just an emotional issue, it's a public health crisis. Chronic loneliness has been linked to depression, anxiety, and even physical health risks like heart disease. But why is this happening? Part of the problem is the disintegration of community spaces. Unlike previous generations who grew up with neighborhood gatherings, strong religious communities, and local clubs, Gen Z is more likely to hang out online than in person. When they do go out, it's often for curated Instagram moments rather than genuine bonding. Comparison, culture, and the fear of missing out. FOMO. Scrolling through social media, Gen Z is constantly bombarded with highlight reels of other people's lives, vacations, parties, relationships, success stories. It creates a toxic cycle. If you're not out doing something exciting, you feel like you're missing out. If you are doing something exciting, you feel pressured to document it rather than fully enjoy it. If your post doesn't get enough engagement, you feel invisible. This leads to a never-ending comparison game where Gen Z feels they're always falling short. Digital versus real world. Confidence and other factor in Gen Z's loneliness is social anxiety and a lack of real-world confidence. When communication happens primarily through screens, face-to-face interactions become intimidating. Eye contact feels unnatural. Small talk feels awkward. Conflict resolution is avoided rather than handled. As a result, many Gen Z individuals struggle with deepening friendships, leaving them stuck in a cycle of surface-level interactions. How to break free? How does Gen Z escape this loneliness trap? It starts with small but powerful shifts. Limit social media consumption. Reducing screen time helps clear the mind from constant comparison and digital validation seeking. Prioritize real-world interactions. Making an effort to meet up in person strengthens relationships and builds emotional resilience. Join in-person communities. Whether it's a local club, volunteering, or a sports team, engaging in shared activities fosters deep friendships. Practice vulnerability. Real connections require openness. Sharing struggles, thoughts, And dreams creates authentic bonds. Detach self-worth from social media. Recognizing that online popularity does not equate to real-life fulfillment is crucial. The loneliness epidemic isn't just a phase, it's a crisis that needs to be addressed head-on. And the solution? Less screen time, more real time. Because at the end of the day, meaningful relationships aren't measured in likes, but in moments. Lesson 4. The mental health struggles. Why anxiety and depression are skyrocketing. Gen Z is the most anxious and depressed generation in modern history. Studies show that over 60% of Gen Z report struggling with mental health issues, far higher than previous generations. But why? What's fueling this mental health crisis, and how can we turn it around? The pressure to be perfect from a young age. Gen Z has been bombarded with unrealistic expectations. Whether it's academic performance, career success, or social media perfection, the pressure never stops. They've been raised in a world where getting good grades isn't enough. You need extracurriculars, leadership roles, and community service. Landing a job isn't enough. You need to hustle. Have a side gig and grind 24/7s. Being attractive isn't enough. You need filters, flawless skin, and a perfectly curated feed. This never-ending performance culture leads to burnout, self-doubt, and constant stress. The social media effect on mental health. Social media isn't just a source of entertainment, it's a mental battlefield. The constant exposure to perfect lives, success stories, and influencer lifestyles creates imposter syndrome. Feeling like you're never good enough compared to others, validation addiction, depending on likes, comments, and shares. For self-worth, doom scrolling, and anxiety, constantly consuming negative news, which spikes stress levels. The pandemic's impact. COVID-19 pandemic made things worse. With lockdowns, school closures, and limited social interactions, Gen Z was forced into isolation during critical developmental years. The result? A surge in depression and anxiety, social withdrawal and lack of confidence, increased dependence on digital connections over real-world interactions. How can Gen Z improve their mental health? Fixing this crisis isn't easy, but here are 5 actionable steps. Set digital boundaries, reducing screen time, and curating a healthier online experience. Prioritize mental fitness, just like physical exercise. Practicing mindfulness and self-care strengthens resilience. Seek real connections, talking to someone in person. Whether it's a friend, mentor, or therapist, is more powerful than texting. Challenge perfectionism. Embracing imperfection reduces stress and boosts self-esteem. Adopt a growth mindset. Viewing challenges as opportunities rather than failures fosters emotional strength. The mental health crisis isn't just a Gen Z problem, it's a societal issue that needs attention. But with awareness, small daily habits, and real connections, Gen Z can reclaim their well-being and build a healthier future. Lesson 5. The anxiety epidemic. Why Gen Z is more stressed than ever. Picture this. You wake up, check your phone, and instantly your heart sinks. News of economic collapse, climate disasters, and political unrest flood your feed. And you switch to social media, where everyone seems to be living their best life, except you. This is the daily reality for Gen Z, a generation that, despite technological advances, struggles with anxiety, depression, and burnout at record levels. The rise of the mental health crisis. A staggering 91% of Gen Z between ages 18 to 24 report stress-related symptoms, according to the APA. But what's causing this? Unlike millennials, Gen Z has never known a world without crisis. They've lived through a global pandemic, economic crashes, mass layoffs, okay, and skyrocketing living costs before even turning 25. Their financial future feels uncertain there. Social life is often digital, and the pressure to succeed fast is crushing. Comparison culture and digital pressure. Think back to the early 2000s. Millennials grew up without smartphones in their hands, 24/7. But Gen Z was born into the era of instant comparison. They don't just see their friends' lives, they see every influencer, entrepreneur, and 19-year-old millionaire on TikTok, making them feel like failures if they aren't hyper-successful by 22. The escape. Coping mechanisms that backfire. Some turn to escapism, doom-scrolling, Netflix binges, or gaming marathons. Others chase hustle culture, working themselves to exhaustion. But neither fixes the real issue. Gen Z is struggling with an identity crisis. Torn between achievement culture and self-care. So how does Gen Z break free? The answer isn't simple. But it starts with redefining success not as rapid wealth or fame, but as stability, fulfillment, and balance. Lesson 6. The loneliness paradox. The most connected, yet the most isolated. In 2024, loneliness is deadlier than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And yet, we live in the most connected time in history. If Gen Z is always online, why are they the loneliest generation? The decline of face-to-face interaction. Picture the past. Millennials used to knock on doors, ride bikes in groups, and hang out at the mall. Gen Z, they're more likely to spend their evenings Snapchatting, texting, or gaming online. While digital spaces give the illusion of connection, they fail to replace real-world human bonding. Ghosting, short attention spans, and superficial friendships with instant access to people, Gen Z can also instantly cut them off. Ghosting has skyrocketed. Why deal with conflict when you can simply disappear? Friendships feel more temporary than ever, leading to a cycle of mistrust and isolation. The cure. Real human connection. The antidote isn't more TikTok scrolling or better Wi-Fi, it's intentional offline relationships. Studies show that shared real-world experiences release oxytocin, the bonding hormone, reducing loneliness and depression. If Gen Z wants deep, lasting connections, they have to step beyond their screens and into real, uncomfortable human experiences. Lesson 7. The work revolution. Why Gen Z is quitting traditional careers. A job for life. No thanks. Gen Z doesn't dream of corner offices or company loyalty. They crave freedom, flexibility, and purpose. The death of the 9-to-5 dream. Gen Z doesn't want to work for 40 years and retire at 65. They grew up watching millennials burn out, stuck in dead-end jobs with student debt. Now they're opting out. Freelancing, remote work, and content creation are replacing the traditional career ladder. Quiet quitting and the anti-hustle movement. Remember when hustle culture was king? Gen Z is flipping the script. They refuse to live to work. They want careers that serve their lifestyle, not consume it. This is why they job hop, embrace work-life balance, and prioritize mental health over money. The future. A work-life rebellion. Traditional jobs will either adapt or lose talent. Companies that offer freedom, remote flexibility, and work-life balance will thrive. The real question is, Will millennials and boomers catch up to Gen Z's new work philosophy? Lesson 8. The social media addiction: why Gen Z can't escape the algorithm. Did you know that the average Gen Z member spends 9 hours a day on their phone? That's more time scrolling than sleeping. Designed to be addictive, social media isn't. Just a tool, it's a casino designed to hijack attention. Every time Gen Z gets a like, a comment, or a notification, dopamine is released, training the brain to crave more. Short-form content is destroying focus. TikTok, Reels, and YouTube Shorts have shrunk attention spans to just 8 seconds. Result? Lower productivity, more anxiety, and difficulty focusing on long-term goals. Breaking free. The digital detox movement. More Gen Z are realizing the trap: setting app limits, turning off notifications, and reclaiming their time. But the battle against digital addiction is just beginning. Lesson 9. Political activism or performative wokeness. Gen Z is the most socially conscious generation, but are they making real change or just virtue signaling? Passionate but divided? They fight for climate action, rights, and racial equality, but with political tribalism at an all-time high. Activism often turns into online outrage wars instead of real solutions. The cancel culture dilemma. Accountability is important, but is cancel culture helping or hurting? Instead of conversations and change, many brands, influencers, and even regular people live in fear of saying the wrong thing. The future of Gen Z activism. Will Gen Z turn online outrage into real-world progress? The answer lies in whether they can move beyond hashtags into action-based impact. Lesson 10. The entrepreneur generation: how Gen Z is becoming the next wave of millionaires. Gen Z isn't waiting for promotions. They're creating their own wealth. The rise of the digital hustle. E-commerce, YouTube, dropshipping, crypto. Personal brands. Gen Z has more ways to get rich than any generation before. Rejecting the college debt trap. Fewer Gen Z are going to college, realizing they can learn skills faster, cheaper, and make money sooner online. The big question: will they succeed? Starting as easy as staying consistent is the challenge. Those who stick with the grind will become the business leaders of 2030. Lesson 11. The future of Gen Z. What's next? Will Gen Z redefine success, or will they crumble under the pressure of an uncertain world? As the most digitally connected, socially conscious, and career-rebellious generation, Gen Z stands at a crossroads. The next decade will determine whether they emerge as the leaders of a new era or remain trapped in cycles of anxiety, burnout, and distraction. The mental health battle: healing or worsening. Gen Z is more open about mental health than any previous generation. But will awareness translate into real healing? The rise of therapy, mindfulness, and self-help books suggests progress. Yet the constant stress of financial instability, climate anxiety, and digital overload makes true mental well-being a challenge. The question is, will Gen Z learn to set boundaries, slow down, and prioritize self-care over hustle culture? Relationships: can Gen Z overcome the loneliness epidemic? The paradox of Gen Z is clear: more connected than ever, yet deeply lonely. Their challenge isn't finding people, it's forming deep, meaningful connections beyond likes and follows. If they embrace face-to-face interaction, vulnerability, and emotional intelligence, they can rebuild the real-life communities that previous generations took for granted. Financial freedom or economic struggle. Gen Z refuses to follow the traditional path of work, but can they master financial independence? Entrepreneurship, investing, and digital careers offer new ways to build wealth. Yet many still struggle with financial literacy, economic instability, and the temptation of instant gratification. The Gen Z millionaires of the future won't be those who chase trends, but those who play the long game, master money management, and adapt to a shifting economy, escaping the social media trap. Attention spans are shrinking, dopamine addiction is rising, and mental clarity is at risk. Can Gen Z break free? The digital detox movement is growing, with more young people questioning their relationship with technology. The future belongs to those who use social media as a tool rather than letting it control them. Activism will. They make real change. Gen Z has passion, but will it translate into impact? Protests, online movements, and cancel culture have dominated the last decade, but lasting change requires action, policy shifts, and long-term commitment. The real leaders of this generation will be those who step beyond social media, debates, and into real-world solutions. The final verdict: the choice is theirs. Gen Z's future isn't set in stone. They have the tools, resources, and awareness to thrive in a way no generation before them has. But the biggest question remains: will they take control of their lives? Or will they let external forces, social media, stress, and economic uncertainty control them? Final thoughts? Gen Z is at a turning point. Will they break free from stress, burnout, and digital addiction? Or will they fall deeper into the cycle of anxiety, loneliness, and financial struggle? The answer lies in their hands.